Pests beware, your fields have heroes. The Pests and Predators podcast is brought to you by Field Heroes and is powered by the Western Grains Research Foundation. Learn how beneficial insects fight pests and protect your crops. Visit fieldheroes.ca today.
We're talking markets here with Brian Comeault of Ireland Comeault Lafoy. We're going to talk wheat here in a second. I guess let's start in the U.S. We had an update yesterday on the wheat crop conditions in the U.S. What did that report tell us from USDA?
We actually saw some reductions in the winter wheat conditions ratings. I think this caught the market a little bit by surprise. I think they were looking for an unchanged crop condition ratings at about 52% good to excellent. It was reduced to 50% good to excellent. So that caught the market a little off guard. That has, wheat up today substantially. This was the first week as well for U.S. spring wheat reporting, and that came in at 45% good to excellent, which was significantly below where the market was expecting. The one report I had read was that the expectation was 70% good to excellent, which would kind of be in between average and last year's, initial crop rating. So it's not 70 sounds large, but it would have been in between that. They reported at 45. There's been a significant amount of rain in the Dakotas and in the spring wheat areas. So I think maybe the crop ratings folks are looking at maybe some drowning or some issues related to excess of moisture, as opposed to, a lot of the chatter in some areas has been in dryness, right? So, given that, I suppose there's an opportunity for spring wheat because it's well supplied with water that it could rebound pretty significantly. But hey, it has wheat markets up, today as a result, after some, multiple weeks of pressure.
And I think the trouble too, Brian, is on some of the recent rains. I know from Western Canadian Prairie perspective, it's hard to get it's great. There has been some rain that has gone through some parts. It's been a little bit cooler as well, though, which buys you some time. But the fact is, there's not a lot of moisture reserve there. So yeah, sure, it's rained the last couple of weeks in certain areas, but we're gonna need more within a couple of weeks. It's going to hold us through to grain fill. So we're still in this need rain at the right time sort of mode this year.
Exactly. And I mean, there is a dichotomy between, the big rains hit, southern North Dakota and into South Dakota. So we didn't see that in Canada, and we're quite deficient. So, their acres is lower. I think it was just over 10 million acres, which is really low for spring wheat. So any kind of hiccups in the growing season is going to be felt in the US for sure.
Yeah. Acreage number, and you think that you'd said in the prior segment that this is a year where you kind of go back to the basics, the main crops, and wheat, of course, is one of those crops. Do you think where do you have the wheat number on acres?
For Canada?
Yeah.
I think at this point I'm in line with Statistics Canada. I don't have that number right in front of me here, but I think they were showing an increase year over year. I think that could be still realistic. The cash prices for wheat are still relatively strong, even though the futures have backed off. Mm. So there's still, some profitable areas to be had for wheat, and canola is an expensive crop to grow. So it does make sense to me. I think those two major crops at this point, my bias is still for not a whole lot of change in those two crops.
Yeah. And because of, the cost cutting mode that farmers have been in through the winter, right? It's that decision on canola versus wheat. You look at the upfront cost or the in-season cost. You're like, oh yeah, wheat, I can probably get away with. Maybe I'm going to go that direction. So you can see how some of those acres may steer that way. Whether or not they come out of canola or they come out of peas and flax, we'll have to wait and see on that. To finish up here from a wheat perspective, demand. What's demand look like?
Demand, globally, what it feels like is that the world is shifted to kind of a hand to mouth kind of operation where, they know where the wheat stocks are. The U.S. just reported 900 million tons of of ending stocks for the next year. So the market doesn't feel like they're really, really craving demand or stockpiling. Having said that, Canadian demand wheat exports have been really strong in Canada. And, for no necessarily obvious reason, which I think just means that there is a confidence in doing business with Canada that may not be available in other areas like the Black Sea, for example, things like that. So I think we're taking advantage of that, and so I think our Canadian wheat demand is strong and will likely continue to remain that way, particularly if we have a half decent year for wheat production.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, Brian, thanks a lot for joining us here today on on RealAg Radio. Really appreciate it.
You betcha. Have a great rest of your week.